Hey everyone, this is Tim Enlow, and I'm here with my good friend Aaron Holt. And we are so thankful that God has called you and us into evangelistic ministry. And this
Mm.
stream is all about amplifying the call of God, the fruitfulness, and for those that are existing evangelists to kind of grow and always to stay on the potter's wheel and to stay away from stagnancy and fighting all the battles we all face of frustration and impatience and things like that. But God is so good. Hey, Aaron, it's great to see you today.
Oh, great to be here, Tim, and looking forward to this episode. Looking forward to our guest, Kathy Wampler, who has been a friend of my wife and I for many years now. And first met you, Kathy, when you were traveling with Dave Reaver, who has been an evangelist for many, many, many years. And now it's exciting to see how God is using you and your husband in itinerant ministry, evangelistic ministry. So excited for some encouraging words that you'll have for all of us evangelists that are listening and a part today. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Kathy, I'm just going to jump right in if that's all right.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the main things that is so important, probably the main thing, is our own personal spiritual lives as evangelists. It's one thing to tell someone to do something, but it's another thing to be doing it yourself. Do you have any insights on kind of maintaining your own spiritual fire and life?
Yeah, I first of all, I think it's so important that we get in the word ourselves. Like you said, it's so easy to tell everybody that they're supposed to be and you're supposed to go to church. I'll just be totally transparent. One of the things in all the years of traveling in ministry that I hadn't been very good at for a long while, and this just here's my confession, is church attendance when I'm home. Now, I know it wasn't that I was opposed to going to church, and of course we were faithful to watch different people online and listen to things. We were getting fed in ways, but in the last number of years, the Lord really began to convict me that when you're home, you need to be in the body, not just listening to the body. The Bible says, we're the blessing of gathering together with believers. There's a blessing when we walk in and hug someone's neck and shake their hand, and we support. When we go speak, we love to see the audience full. Well, what if they all stayed home and watched on live stream? The pastor probably likes to preach and see his audience full.
Yeah.
And so I really began to just say, because I'll preach occasionally in certain moments where I'll tell the people, hey, it's important to be in church, get involved, and yet I wasn't. So the Lord really began to just convict me. And even in the obedience to my husband and I talking about it and say, we really know that we need to be physically getting up on those Sundays. Yeah, we're out the other Sundays, but it'd be easy just to stay home. But God's just really been convicting us. And that's maybe our own personal conviction. But anytime the Holy Spirit convicts us and we obey, we're blessed. There's just no way we can outrun that blessing when we're obedient. And so I think it's so important that we connect as an evangelist on our own level of spiritual walk and getting in the word and spending that time. And it doesn't have to look like everyone else's or the amount of time everyone else does something, but just knowing that we are where we need to be on that level. I have recently been rereading the Old Testament, and I actually love the Old Testament. A lot of people really just kind of cringe, but I love the Old Testament. And I was rereading the story. I've been reading it the last few days about Nadab and Abihu. And of course, we all know how their story ends up. And they're the sons of Aaron, and Aaron is a priest. And they end their story by going in and offering strange fire, profane fire, one translation says, before the Lord. And they were killed because of it. They went into the tabernacle and offered that. But when I read that, I back up and say, okay, how did they get there? And when I look at their story, I was just reading in Exodus 22, where it says that there was a moment where all of the children of Israel were camped at the bottom of Mount Sinai, and Moses is told by God to come up. And he says, I want you to bring with you Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 elders. And I want you to bring them up to my presence. The story of Nadab and Abihu is they start in the presence of God. Now, Moses goes beyond them and goes up into the cloud to meet with God. But they all come up the mountain to a point where they're in the presence of God. And it talks about how they sat there and they enjoyed the presence of God. I mean, first of all, wow, yes, wow, what a powerful moment. And then a few chapters later, it says that Aaron and Nadab and Abihu, his sons, they were in charge of keeping the lampstand in the tabernacle, keeping the oil through the night, all night. They had this wonderful, incredible responsibility to make sure from evening till morning the lamp stayed lit. The next time we hear about them is that they're going in to offer strange fire, this odd fire in the presence of God.
Mm.
And I read that and it makes me wonder, how did they get there? What happened? Where did they get off track? Where did they get deceived? Where did they get discouraged? Where did they get jealous of someone else who had a better job in the tabernacle? Where did they get to a place where they thought they could go into this holy place, offer this strange fire, and God be okay with it?
Wow.
And when I read the passage, I thought, Lord, please never let me be guilty of stepping into a pulpit and trying to insert some opinion or doctrine that is not biblically correct. Help me to never offer this strange fire so that when I step into that moment, I am as guilty as they are.
Wow.
Because I've lived in the presence of God. I've spent time in his presence. I've been entrusted with this great responsibility of keeping the lamp going. And yet I finally get comfortable enough with that and say, well, God won't care if I kind of tell this joke. I know it's kind of, we cross that line. It's too easy to cross that line. I'm not a old fuddy-duddy about things, but you know what? I believe that we are supposed to carry in us a level of holiness and reverence for the pulpit. And I think we get too quick to kind of lose that. And then we start to mix in this strange fire. I don't know what the fire was. The Bible isn't clear. Whatever it was, it says that they offered profane fire that God did not require. Whatever it was that they offered, it was disobedient because God didn't want it. And so instead of me trying to watch every other evangelist and how they do, and oh, they look cool when they do that, or they sound really cool, it seems like they've got lots of followers. Maybe if I'm more like that, I just say, Lord, help me just to stay in your presence, to be faithful to what you've called me to do, and to step into the pulpit ready to go, biblically sound teaching that lines up with your word, and not get caught up in this place where I ever think that it is okay for me to step into that moment with anything other than what God has put in my mouth to share with his people.
That's so good.
Yeah,
I echo your thoughts, Kathy, on all of that, but especially the one of your leading thoughts there was the thought of having a home church that you are, in community with, as an evangelist, and a place where you are attending and worshiping and serving and part of a healthy community. And I found myself over the last couple of years in conversation with a lot of other evangelists, encouraging that very thing, saying to them, hey, if you're, if you don't have a home church that you love and want to be in attendance at when you happen to have a weekend off, or where you even serve and volunteer, even better, right? If you don't have that, you're not ministering under a correct biblical spiritual authority, in your life. And you need that covering. You need that spiritual authority that you can, humbly be a part of that community and serve in that community, and I just last week, I was talking with one of our younger evangelists, and he had mentioned to me that that exact thought that you shared was revolutionary for him. And so he started, listen to this, he started volunteering on weekends when he, doesn't have a booking. He started volunteering in the parking ministry at his church, holding up one of those signs, saying, welcome, you belong here. Yeah. And he said to me last week, he said, it's produced a deeper level of humility in me, because now I'm showing up to church to serve, as opposed to the standard I'm showing up to be on a platform and to, in some cases, be, escorted to the green room, so to speak, that, and he and I were talking about how it's actually not healthy for your soul as a believer, as a follower of Christ, that every time you go to church, you are a guest of honor to some degree. Like, we're not built for that, No. So thanks for sharing that.
No, well, you're welcome. And you know what else is, as evangelists, I know that we all have this burning desire to preach when we can. And yes, we like the Sunday
off.
As
you should. Yeah.
Yes. But you know what else that church attendance can do for you? And this is a perfect example. Let's see, New Year's Eve morning this year was on in 2023 was on a Sunday. And I got up, we were going to get ready to go to church. It was about 7 a.m. and we were still just sitting there kind of drinking our coffee. And my phone, I got a text from the pastor's wife of the church that we attend. And she said to me, she said, "Kathy, are you home this weekend? By chance, are you home?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Would you be prepared to preach? Could you preach this morning? Our pastor is sick. And
Oh,
she's
no.
not a speaker. She's the worship leader, but she doesn't preach." And I said, "Yes. Yes." And you know what it was for me? First of all, I probably would have never gotten that call if they didn't see me in the pew from time to time. They don't know I attend there. If I'm watching from home, I don't get that phone call. I don't get that opportunity. And you know what that spur of the moment call does for me? It sharpens can I use the word craft? The thing that God has called me to do, it's like it sharpens me because I had to do that instant in season and out. We all like to throw that out. Oh, you need to be instant in season. But when the 7:00 text comes and you weren't planning on preaching that day and you're still kind of groggy from, all the Christmas holidays, then you wake up and go, "Okay, Lord, I need to hear from you. I need to know, what do these people need in about an hour?"
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That is so good. Caring for your own soul and not only, obviously word and devotion, but tied into a body, serving there. I remember, so I have a weird growing up. My dad was in gospel music, and so I traveled with him from about 8 years old on. And so they were always on a platform, whatever. But when we would pull into the church parking lot, we hop out of the bus, and nobody was there yet. Usually my dad would take me around. We walk around the parking lot, clean the church parking lot before anybody got there. And the whole idea was nobody can see us do this. This is just, we take care of God's house. And I always thought it was just real interesting that, I didn't, as a kid, I was like, gross, all this stuff is dirty and whatever, we're thrown away. But the whole
God's
principle,
people are messy.
yeah, they really are. And they drink a lot of O'Douls. And no, but it was so funny because looking back, as I've grown up, I saw what my dad was intentionally doing.
Yeah.
Trying to say, platform is this much, spiritual life is this much,
Yeah.
Well, otherwise we say we love the body, but we only love them if we get to speak to them.
Right.
Something in it for us. Yeah. Right.
Yes. Instead of saying I love the body because I want to be part of the body.
Yeah. There's also it's natural to want to use your gift as an evangelist, which for most evangelists, your gift is a platform gift. It's a speaking gift. But when you, as a follower of Christ, simply say, "God, use me," don't make sure you really mean that. God, use me. Not because oftentimes what we really mean is, "God, use my gift."
Yes.
When we pray that prayer. But God, just use me, because you can be just as effective as an evangelist in being a part of a local church, in the conversations you're having, in the prayer moments, in just filling in those gaps, because you come into that home church setting when you're on a week off, you come in with a set of spiritual eyes that very few other people in the house have, because of the calling and the mantle that's on your life. And so you can naturally then fill in some of those gaps and be such a blessing to your pastor that you serve, and to their staff, and to the whole team there. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have shared this story so many times because it was such a pivotal part in my life, where God really changed my view of things. But it was at a time, it was at least 30 years ago. I was going to a church. This is so crazy, because when I first came into ministry, I was going to church every time we were home. And then I kind of got to where, oh, we're home, I'm not going to go as much. And
Sure.
Blah, blah. And now here we go. So, but back then we were going, and I attended this church that called me to sing because a famous football player was coming to give his testimony. He had accepted the Lord, and he was giving his testimony, and they were going to let him share. And they asked me if I would sing before he ministered. And so yes. And so all week I was so excited. I was so starry-eyed that this football player, he played for the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's hard to believe any of them could be saved, but apparently and so anyway, he was coming, and all week I just started getting really starry-eyed. He's going to be on the front row. I'm going to get to sing. I mean, they asked me to sing. They didn't ask you to sing. They asked me to sing. This is moment in life. I don't know what I thought he was going to do for me, but I made the whole week of preparation about him being on the front row and trying to impress this man. And I remember getting up to sing, and the audience probably thought everything was great and normal. It was a lovely song, and I sang it, and they probably thought my heart was fully intentional to the Lord. It wasn't. All I was thinking about when I was singing was impressing this famous football player on the front row. And I remember when I got done and went to my seat, as I sat down, the Lord just said to me, he said, Kathy, I sit on the front row every time you sing, and you've never tried to impress me.
Wow.
We sometimes get so wrapped up in the impress mode. And I know we're not all, it's not that we're all such horrible people, and I get it, but we get so
Human
wrapped
nature, right?
Yes. And we get wrapped up in making sure everything sounds right and comes off right. And our message is polished. We memorize it so we don't have to use notes, or we like the iPad notes because that looks cool. You know, whatever we think, we get so wrapped up in that we forget the reason we do it, which plays into church attendance. We get so wrapped up in the show side of what happens and the green room side and all of that we forget that really our posture is to, quote, just impress the Lord. And if that means impressing him is sitting in a pew with my hands raised in worship, laughing when the preacher gives his joke and it's funny and I'm there to support it, and to give my tithe and offering to that congregation, that's when God says, okay, now you're impressing me. Now you've impressed me.
That's a good word. Come on. Yeah, that's amazing.
So good. So good. Well, we love you, Kathy, and are so thankful for your ministry. And you have influenced so many others. And Dave, I love your husband. He's a little more quiet because you're kind of the out front person, but he's a sage of wisdom as well. And the two of you together have influenced so many over the years, and we're just so grateful. And that's not stopping; it's only exponentially increasing.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for you guys.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you, Tim.
Kathy, thanks for joining us today. For those that are watching or listening and they'd love to connect with you, where are you hanging out online, on social? How do we find you?
So Kathy Wampler, Kathy with a K, and Wampler, you can see the spelling with the AMP. People, mess that up a lot, but kathywampler.com is the website. Facebook is at Kathy Wampler Ministries, and Instagram is at K Wampler. And then I do have a YouTube channel, just my name, and I have a weekly Bible study there that posts every Monday. And if you just want to email me, I love to get emails from people. That's great. It's just Kathy at kathywampler.com.
Awesome. Awesome. So encourage those of you that are watching, listening, give Kathy a shout out and drop her a line, ask her a question. There's so much and I can just, speak from personal experience because Julie and I have been friends with Dave and Kathy for so many years, but there's a tremendous amount of wealth, spiritual wealth in Dave and Kathy, and you'll be blessed by having the opportunity to rub shoulders with them. The word of God says that as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. And I've definitely been the benefactor of that personally from both you and your husband, Kathy. So thank you for your investment in me and my wife and our ministry when we were youth pastors years ago at the church in Reading. And we've done a lot of ministry with you guys there. And so, if you're watching on our YouTube channel here, Amplify, the YouTube channel is called I Want to Be an Evangelist. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. And if you know another evangelist that you feel like could be blessed by this word from Kathy today, hit that share button and just send it their way and share the wealth the riches that we enjoyed today from what you shared, Kathy. So, Tim, another great episode. Always great partnering with you, co-hosting with you. And we just thank all of you that joined us today. Great episode. We'll see you guys next time.